Hello and welcome, guys. We're back with another tier list now. Fourth one, already done Nomad, Mountain Pass, and African Quivering of the A to Z tier lists for the Nomad start maps. And why do they call it A to Z? Because it's A to Z, the order which we put the civs onto the tier list. We have Aztecs and we have Vikings to end, so it's probably a little bit disingenuous to call it A to Z when it should just be A to V, because we don't actually have a civilization. It starts with Z. That would be nice though. It would be nice. We don't need any more civs. We already have 40, so the aim of the video is to try and get through these about a minute per civ. Some will come in nice and fast, but nearly all the other videos have been about 40 minutes, so we'll keep this one relatively tight. But why are we doing these videos? I am hosting a tournament called Nomad Wars League, and essentially I'm making a tier list so things should be a little bit easier for the players, because not all the maps are overly familiar. It is a league system, so hopefully going to be hosting this over, a number of months and with many seasons, but I will also be hosting other single elimination. I did host the Wandering Squires Cup, the sub-event for Wandering Warriors recently, and we'll be hosting more in the future, so if you're interested, just hit me up. We'll get you in the Discord, and there'll be more to come. Now, before we get started on a tier list, let's just take a quick look at the map, and we can see it's something, alright. It's pretty damn bright when you actually see all this bogland as it is, and you can see I picked teal because it's very hard to see on the minimap. I was very sneaky like that. But you can see the wood lines aren't very large. They're actually quite small, like a galley or a tower could range the full thing. Lots of stone and gold, it must be said. Sometimes actually spawning right next to each other is pretty common. The fish is nice. This is actually very uncommon to have two little ponds next to each other. You can see this is more normal. They're usually pretty spread out, where you do have deep fish and then you have some box turtles in there as well. You have lots of buffaloes, and that's really the main characteristics of the map. Whether you have big cavities of land is going to be some RNG up to the map scripting, but apart from that, not too much else to talk about. We can get over to the tier list and we can start looking at the criteria. So what's going to be important for this one, like we've done for the other ones. So first thing we're probably going to look at is very early economy bonuses towards wood, because you're going to want to get up to feudal age pretty fast and then start to go for the military. And obviously it's going to be water military. It's going to be water military, so anything that's kind of geared towards that early eco bonus, and wood would be a big, big plus. Able to make quick transitions to feudal and then castle. To be honest, the transition to feudal age can be pretty standard for most civs. But once you get into feudal age, you can start to build some advantages with your eco, depending on what civ you are. But most should be able to get up pretty fast, and then getting up to castle age can be important too, if you are able to survive, and games are a little bit stalematy. I have seen it happen in times, but most of the games do get decided in the feudal age part of the game. Next one would be great water techs for military, all-round dock tech tree, and discounts for the dock as well. So, pretty much civs are going to be having big bonuses towards their dock. Sorry, I'm just messing around and moving that by accident. And our fourth one would be easy to play on the map. Easy to play. Now, you start with extra villagers, you also start with the extra fishing ships, so anything you can really do to make that process a little bit easier and not so difficult is going to improve things for sure. And that's our four main criteria points as we're going to look at this tier list. Let's get hopped into it, will we? Let's get hopped into it. And first up, we have Aztecs. Aztecs might be a surprise for some, but they're a solid B tier civ for me. This one, big one, is actually having the extra gather rate and also the faster working military. And it's not actually military buildings, it's any military unit as far as I'm aware. So just in that alone, it makes them a pretty solid B tier civ. We don't really need to worry too much about Imperial Age techs in this map, because it's very, very unlikely the game gets all the way to Imperial Age. It's a very snowbally map, and don't worry about meso civs not getting crazy bonuses. It's all about the early game on Water Nomad. It really is. It's all about the early game. Next up, we have Berbers. Berbers are a little bit of an edge case for me. think they're solid B. Obviously, the villagers and the ships move faster. It's not much of an eco bonus, but it is something. But they don't have a distinct eco bonus, but they should be able to get up to feudal age at a competitive time. The micro should be a little bit easier, but I don't think they're quite A in comparison to other civs, but I think they're a very high B and a very solid civilization to have. Bohemians is another one. I think they're also B. They get both the mining techs. Big one there is a gold, so you can actually take villagers off of gold. You can probably take one off of gold, put them onto wood, which is nice there. Let's say the game does get to castle age. If you could get chemistry on your war galleys, that would be kind of cracked as well. I really wouldn't mind that one. I think they're probably a little bit underrated and should be able to do some damage, but nothing super crazy. I wouldn't think so. Our next one up would also be Britons. Might be a little bit of a strange one for people too. Oh, and do you know what? Do you know what I forgot to mention for Bohemians as well? Your blacksmith's cheaper, so it's going to be really easy to get fast fletching with Bohemians, which you're more often than not you're going to be opening galleys on the map and versus fires. So if you can get your blacksmith up a little bit earlier, a little bit cheaper, you're probably going to be floating the food and the gold for it anyway at that point in the game. Early feudal. Things can snowball really fast if you're a few minutes ahead in fletching, because it's so much easier to micro. You can just pull back a lot of extra damage too. Big consideration there, which puts Bohemians in B. Anyway, next one is Britons. Britons, I think, are another solid B, and largely because of the shepherds working 25% faster. There's a lot of buffalo in the map, and you actually really want to carry that buffalo in the early stages of the game. You don't really want to add too many more fish. You already have the fishing ships working from the offset, which is really, really strong actually. So get your dock down ASAP, and you're trying to race up to feudal age, and Britons should be able to get there very fast. And even a transition to castle age, if you do need it, should be a little bit easier. If you just take a few villagers and put them on the buffaloes, you can also have less villagers on there. In comparison, they can be on wood, still keeping up their military production. I kind of like Britons. I think they're probably low-key underrated. Bulgarians is the next one here. Bulgarians, I'm going to put them in D. They don't have an eco bonus, so to speak. But one thing they can go for is the blacksmith pretty early, and you do get a saving on fletching, 50% off, and the blacksmith also works pretty fast as well, 80% faster, so fletching comes in like boom, like that, and you're good to go. It might be a little bit harsh. Is it a little bit harsh? Maybe they're low C. Let's put them low C. We'll put them, I think they're probably going to end up about here, and I'd kind of be happy with that one. Burgundians up next. For me, they're solid C. You don't want to go typically super early for the lumber camp anyway, so you don't want to get bitax, but potentially going for bow saw and feudal age could be really, really nice. That could be really good for them, and it wouldn't be the biggest cost. You've already got your lumber camp up at that point. Obviously, sorry, my brain just went. Obviously, you've got the big cost to the wood. This is the joys of doing it in one take, guys. You have to just snap the lines. Obviously, the bow saw is pretty expensive on the wood, but the minus 50% on the food isn't something that's... I guess it's still a big saving, but it's not something that really would affect your gameplay, because in Feudal Age you still have the fish working more often or not, and you can just keep them going, so that's always good. Next up, we have Burmese. And Burmese, for me, are actually solid A. You can delay that lumber camp super long, which is nice, so you can get the blacksmith up even quicker, because you do get double bitax for free and bow saw for free too. I really like Burmese. They're really solid. Should be able to snowball the game from very early on, and yeah, they should do well. They should do well here. Now, I don't think people are going to like this one. Byzantines for me are B. They're a B tier civ on Water Nomad. People might love the fire galleys. I don't. It's a galley map. is most definitely a galley map. And once you have like 6, 7 of them, galleys just reign supreme. Fires really struggle to keep up and to catch up. Oh boy, you're going to be really struggling there. But the good thing about fire galleys, you can fire them into the opponent's base and the TC and whatnot, and they can do quite a bit. They can tank damage quite well, a lot more in comparison to normal galleys. But I don't see it. They don't really have an equal bonus, so to speak, in the early game. So there's nothing too crazy there, which could really lend to that getting up fast and making the damage. But they could play defensively for sure. They could certainly play defensively. I just told it a little bit. I'm gonna keep them. I'm gonna keep them B, but I think they're an edge case. They're probably gonna be top of B or so. I think. Anyway, next up we have Celts. Celts are A, largely just due to their wood bonus, which always scales as the game goes up, provided you do get the wood bonuses too. You actually get the upgrades, and it's just a really, really solid start to the game for Celts. It really is. There's not too much else to say about it. The wood bonus is that strong, and it's just one thing you got to consider. The game's probably not going to go that long. Don't worry about it. Celts are absolutely fine. Now, Chinese is a bit of a strange one. I actually think they're high B. I think they're high B. You don't start with food, but you do start with fish and chips in this map, which is really nice. I did test this one. You can get up the same time in the same build as other people, or as other civilizations, but with 2 villagers more. So that's a big advantage. When you've only got 18 villagers and Chinese, I get 20. Now, I only tried it once. I actually think I could optimize that more, potentially get the free, but I'm not too sure. But 2 villagers is more than enough. Same click up time. I think Chinese could do a lot of damage here. And hey, the demo ships, also 50% more hit points. Pretty damn nice. And all the techs get cheaper as you go through the game. So there's some other nice savings. And when you're trying to end the game quickly, everything's really on the limit in terms of resources. So it's really important. People might not think about Chinese, but they're definitely a very solid option here. A lot better than I imagined. Next up, we're going to have our first D tier 7. That's going to be Cumans. Just don't have an eco bonus, so to speak. You're going to see a lot of civs down here that are farming civs. And don't really have early eco bonuses that suit towards Water Nomad. But Cumans is definitely going to be the first. Next up, we have Ethiopians. Ethiopians are going to be a solid C tier civ. The one thing they do have going for them is extra food and extra gold on the edge ups. So it's a little bit easier to go for fletching, or for whatever upgrade you want to go for. Probably bit act could be prioritized there. The only issue is that the food and gold is typically not something you're super needing in that moment. But it's nice. It's still a nice little bonus to get, and that's why the C tier versus being B tier. If it was like a wood bonus, for me it'd be something much, much preferred. Franks, again, farming civ, they're just going to be down here in D tier. Never really going to get to use the farms. Maybe as you start to spam some if you're going to try and get up to Castle Age, maybe beyond. But, the game getting to that point is not very likely. Their dock is pretty damn good. But, yeah, Franks, solid D tier civ, which means not very good. Not a civ I'd be totally happy with getting on Water Nomad. Next up, we have Goths. Goths, pretty similar story. Don't have too much going on their dock whatsoever. I did play a game, well, the game I actually showed you at the beginning of the video. My opponent did pick Goths, and his reasoning was trying to go FC into Huskarls to try and counter the galleys. I was like, man, that's quite an interesting idea. Quite an interesting idea, but it's the biggest issue with Goths. What nerfs them? They're meant to, they're not meant to have these things because it would just be a ridiculous civ that they could play ultra defensive naked casters and don't have stone walls. Now, I think it could work if Goths did have stone walls on some planet, but they only have palisades, and for that, it's not going to work. It's an interesting idea. Maybe in a big team game, you could get to 4v4 Water Nomad and get Huskarls out. Yeah, Goths, another D tier civ. Huns. You can't get the dock up instantly, which makes them really quite poor. You can't really get a competitive quick up time to Feudal Age because of it. And they're another D tier civ. It's just way too delayed. No fun to work with. I don't know if I'd rather have them over these guys, because at the very end of the day, you don't have to make houses, which is nice, and that bonus will start to kick in, but it's not too much in the early stages of the game. You know, you've got enough for the two houses anyway, so you're maybe only saving 100 wood, just under 100 wood for the first like 10-15 minutes of the game. One ship. It's nothing too crazy. It's nothing too crazy. I think we've all like disastrously just given away a ship. Or given away? Gave away a ship. With bad micro or not looking in the right spot. Anyway, next up we have Incas. Incas a solid, no, they're not solid B, they're solid C. Solid C, and you know, their houses also support more population. Very, quite similar to Huns in this aspect. You don't spend as much on the houses, of course. But the big thing for me is obviously having the farms build 100% faster. No, I'm kidding on. That's obviously not a good thing. But they can get up at a pretty competitive time to Feudal Age. You're probably not going to get housed, which is a nice thing. You are making little savings on the houses. But in terms of like their stone bonus or whatnot, probably not going to come into play. Probably not in this one. And I'm kind of happy. I'm kind of happy with that. Next up, we have Indians. Indians seem like a solid C tier civ for me. They have cheaper villagers, but they don't really get anything else. But it is a nice saving on the food. So you might be able to transition to Castle Age a little bit earlier, but the thing is, it's just not a great bonus. Things are gotta be tiered. Lol. They gotta be focused towards wood. And Indians for me seem a little bit underwhelming. I wouldn't be terribly upset if I got them. But I wouldn't be exactly pleased either, let's put it that way. And I think they're solid C. Solid C. I don't see them being as good as any of the B tier civs here, who have more specific bonuses towards the water play. S tier, our first one in there, is Italians. Now, they do get the age ups cheaper, so they can get to feudal age a little bit faster. You can go 17 pop with Italians. Meanwhile, you have pretty competitive military numbers as well. Also get to castle age a lot easier than anybody else. And also all the docks. Also, all the dock upgrades are cheaper when you do get to Castle Age as well, so that's super nice if you do need to go for careening, war galley, whatever it is, if the game does get that far. Italians are super on Water Nomad, and we don't have just one S tier civ, we get two in a row. We have two in a row. Japanese, our next S tier civ. The fishing ships are pretty much indestructible. They do tank a lot more damage, which is nice. Extra pierce and double HP. That is a lot, guys. They also have the half-price economy buildings, which is really nice too. It makes that investment to get Bitax a little bit easier, and if you need to go and mining camp some gold as well, you know, you have saved 100 wood, which, you know, that's actually the same bonus as Huns. And that kind of that timing of the game, which is good. But they also have extra line of sight on their galleys, and you know, the gameplay is just a lot more smoother for Japanese in this instance, where you have the fish working from the very beginning, don't have to worry about it, in comparison to some other civs here. Khmer, I've got them in, I think I originally had them in C. They might be borderline edge B. And big reasons, you don't need to make the buildings on age up, but you're probably going to want to get a lumber camp. But you won't need to make a mill to get your market if you need to sell. You wouldn't even need to get a market to get up to Castle Age if needed. I think they're an edge case. I think they're in between B and C. And I think I'm quite happy to have them there. I'm thinking about it. I am thinking There's nothing really too much else. Not that you're going to make use of the farms and whatnot. I suppose you could hide villagers in the houses in just the odd instances instead of having. I mean, it's better to hide them in houses and running back to the TC and having them picked off, right? It's still not good though. It's still not good. Okay, next up we have Koreans. The villagers obviously have extra line of sight, and you start with a lot of villagers this map, so you should see quite a lot of it from the get-go. Big thing for me here is military units costing minus 20% with. Now, I think I originally had them in B as well, but at the top of B, they're probably an edge. They're probably an edge. I'm going to put them in A, and I think they're just going to drop down a little bit, but I'm happy to have them there. Don't get demos, of course, so let's just say in that instance you do have a Fire Galley War. Not having demos is a little bit rough. And just for the style points, you won't have demos in this map. You want to have demos. Demos are just a fantastic, fantastic unit. But not the biggest issue. Not the biggest issue by any means. And if you want to flex, you don't get demos, but you do get turtles. Even though they're just disastrous. They're super slow, super expensive. Not a really good unit to go for. Next up, we have Lithuanians. Lithuanians actually have a really good dock. Big thing that's a positive here for them is they can go super fast up to Feudal Age and get on to double dock. And it's because you start with 150 extra food. So this early game is super, super easy for Lithuanians, and that's enough to vault them into A over these civs. I actually value them over Byzantines. I know it's insane. I really do. Maybe Byzantines will get moved up to 8. We'll see how this one develops as we go along. Next up, we have Magyars. A Night Civ don't really have anything going for them whatsoever. No economy bonuses, so to speak. Even on normal maps, that can be difficult, but you're not ideally going for land militaries here. So Magyars, I'm sorry guys, solid D tier civ, meaning they're not very good. Not at all. Next up is going to be Malay. Malay? I think they're an edge, just a little bit complicated to play. But I think they're a solid A tier civ. I'm going to put them at the top of A because I think that's close to where they belong. In the right hands, they could be S tier with ease. But the transitions with them are a little bit off because you advance so fast, so you don't really bank the same amount of res. Despite having extra villagers, you do have the extra villagers, which is really nice. But you don't get the same resource bank, so it's a little bit harder to make these transitions up for the ages. But they're a very good civ. You get the extra line of sight on the docks as well, so you can see things coming from quite a distance, which is nice. You can even hide some demo ships in there as they do approach. Next up, we do have Malians. Malians are another solid A tier civ. Do get a little bit of a saving on the not the units like Koreans, but on the buildings, which is good. And also the gold mines last 30% longer, so you almost get an extra tile of gold from whenever you start, which is nice. If you are going to go for Ballistics 2, the university does work 80% faster, so in Castle Age that could be really important. The game gets to Imperial Age, you don't get Galleon, you also don't get Bracers, so they're probably going to be low A, but the early game should be strong enough to see you through in that one. It should be enough to see you through. Okay, next up we have Mayans. And Mayans seem to be like a low B to me. Longer lasting resources, you have the extra villager, but actually the extra villager, I don't know about Aztecs get creeped up there. Let's have Aztecs just ahead of Brits. For Mayans, because you start with the extra villager, with all the fishing ships and whatnot, you can only afford 2 houses. You start in 14 out of 15 pop. So actually having the extra villager there is a little bit worse. It makes the start a lot more awkward because you're going to get housed for quite a long time in comparison to other civs. We're just going to catch up almost instantly. So the extra villager doesn't really come into it. But having longer lasting resources is nice. You know, if you don't invest in a lumber camp at one point, your villagers are just going to stay at that one spot for a little bit longer, a little bit more efficient. And starting with the minus 50 food, yeah, I think maybe... Yeah, no, I'm happy with them in Lobby. Even with the minus 50 food. They do have an extra... The extra villager, maybe I played it wrong and it could be fixed out. But it wasn't easy to play by any means. And I'm just looking at these civs. I probably still prefer them just for the longer lasting res at the end of the day. Mongols up next, D tier civ. Don't really have anything going for them at all. There's no hunt on the map, so can't utilise that there. Nothing too much to say about Mongols whatsoever. D tier civ all the way. Next up, we have Persians. Next, S tier civ. Really, really strong civ. You start with extra wood and food, so you can actually drop 3 houses, which is really important actually. So you don't have to do any of the silly things where you have to have the villagers in their wood and then force up a house with 3 villagers. Yawn. No, don't have to do that with Persians. You can get a dock and 3 houses down right from the beginning, which is really nice. So there's no chance of you getting housed, provided you go for the right start. You also have faster work rate on the docks and the TCs, which is nice for pumping out villagers or even just getting up to the next age, which is really nice too. But double HP on the docks, double HP on the TCs if you do end up getting attacked. They're just a really, really good civ. And they're probably the easiest civ to play on Water Nomad out of the top civs. Probably the easiest. Okay, next up we have Poles. Again, nothing really going for Poles here. It's not a civ I would be particularly happy if I did get them. What could potentially work? I mean, the villagers regenerate HP. The stone miners also generate gold. Maybe they're an edge like high D. I'd probably prefer them over anybody else here, but yeah, there's nothing really coming out of here that would be really, really nice. Portuguese, they look like a total high A to me. Don't have an eco bonus, so to speak, but cheaper gold units, so the galleys are a little bit cheaper. And the big thing is the extra HP on the ships. An extra 20%, I believe. Oh, not as much as 20%. 10%. Even 10% is a nice bonus. And you can get caravels if you do get to Castle Age, which is nice, but for me, a little bit underwhelming in Castle Age, and exponentially get better in Imperial Age. Okay, next up we have Saracens. Saracens, I think, A tier civ 2. Pretty happy with where they are. Don't have an eco bonus really either, or they're definitely not S. But the faster firing galleys and the map is very much geared towards galleys. Really, really nice, especially if you pair it up with fletching. Gonna be the best galleys in Feudal Age. And then the market. The market's a little bit cheaper. You do have to still make the mill, of course. But you could make that transition to Castle Age with not too much issue. Maybe a little bit of buying with the gold you're floating, a little bit of selling. Then you're getting up, you get to War Galley. Things could be a little bit easier then. Next up, we do have Sicilians. Sicilians don't really have too much going for them here, actually. Again, another farming civ. Maybe previously with the transport, could have been nice, the free transport to kind of like scout around, but you actually need that population space for your villagers. I don't like it too much at all. The dock isn't bad, maybe in the long run if you survive to that point, so they're probably like top of D. But yeah, there's nothing too much here. The dock is pretty good. Even the Frank stock's pretty good. Yeah, let's keep those guys there. Okay, next up we have Slavs. We're absolutely boosting through this one, largely because of these farming civs. Slavs don't really have anything going for them whatsoever. All of these civs I would be pretty unhappy with getting. Maybe Sicilians, you would be the happiest out of them all. Yeah, I think that's fair. But in 1v1 Water Nomad, yeah, I'm happy with that. I am happy with that. Next up, we do have Spanish. Spanish seem to be a little bit of a B tier civ for me. Don't have an eco bonus, so to speak, but their tech tree is always pretty damn good. You get the TC up so fast, you should have an extra Vel too. So that should be nice. Should be nice. Getting that TC up nice and fast. Also get the dock up a little bit faster. And, you know, less chance of you getting housed with Spanish Vels too. So I rank them as a solid B. I don't know if I rank them ahead of Aztecs and Brits. Probably in around there. Let's split the difference, right? Let's not have them ahead of Aztecs. Let's not have them... Yeah, just put them in the middle. And that makes total sense. Next up is Tatars. Wouldn't be too happy with Tatars. You do get longer lasting buffaloes, which is kind of nice. Maybe actually second most. I like them out of the D tier civs. Yeah, I think I would go with D. Probably top of D actually, just because of the buffaloes, and it should make that transition to Feudal Age a little bit easier. I certainly wouldn't be happy if I got them, but out of all the D tier civs, maybe Tatars would be the one for me. Next up, we have Teutons. Teuton's going to just slot right in here in with the D tier civs. Won't be able to make use of their bonuses. Maybe free murder holes could be nice in the long run. I don't know. Doesn't seem like anything for me. I would not be happy if I did Teutons. Nothing really screaming out towards me here with the murder holes, the farms, the extra melee armor. It's not good. Maybe the more resistance on the units could be good if the other player went for monks, but that's something that would be so incredibly rare. It wouldn't happen too often. Next up, we have Turks. Turks look like a solid C to me. Do have extra. They used to have gold mining for free or whatever it is. You know, the gold miners do work a little bit faster, which is a good one. The dock's actually not too bad, but apart from that, there's nothing too much. They get chemistry for free if the game did go to Imperial, but seems very unlikely. Yeah, they seem like just a solid C tier civ to me, but nothing too much better. Seems like a fair spot for them. Vietnamese up next. I would say Vietnamese are actually an A tier civ. Now, do I rate them ahead of Lifts? Probably, and then probably behind Saracens. I think that's fair. They get to see the TCS, so that's always nice. So you're going to know where to send your galleys or your fires, whatever it is, from the get-go when you get to Feudal Age. Also, the economy upgrades don't cost wood, only food. That is really, really important. You're not going to have to spend the wood on the eco upgrades. And then you can just put all of that into ships. They might actually be a little bit underrated on Water Nomad. I think if you add in a team game, let's say 2v2 or 3v3, that could be really, really strong. I got to do a little bit more investigating with this one here, but Vietnamese look a solid civ for A tier. Last one we have in the A to Z, we obviously finish on V, is Vikings. And Vikings, very, very good civ. They're probably the second best. I probably rank Persians a little bit higher than Japanese, but these four civs are very, very strong. I think these two are 1 and 2. You could, depending on what mood you're in, but cheaper docks, cheaper galleys, and then the eco bonus is really going to kick in as well as the game goes along. It doesn't make a massive difference on the wood carrying and whatnot, but you know, the villagers move a little bit faster, they carry a little bit more, that is nice. It makes the biggest difference on farms. But for wood carrying, it's still going to be good. And then we can always get to longboats, which are also cheaper. All the units in the dock, all the warships are cheaper for Vikings. So longboats can always be a nice seamless transition because you're going to be getting the same upgrades for galley and war galley. So if you're going to spend the money on war galley, you might just stick with them. But longboats is certainly the flex play. That's the unit we all want to see, right? Is definitely going to be longboats. And anyway, that does conclude the tier list for Water Nomad. Pretty happy with this one. One of the maps I'm certainly more comfortable on. Feel like I have a good grip of the meta on this. Looks pretty strong to me. If you're going to play a game in Water Nomad, I would be trying to target any of the S tier civs, but any of the A tier civs in the right hands should be competitive too. Maybe have a think what you'd be suited to the most. I think a lot of the A tier civs are still going to be really strong. We got this video done in 34 minutes. Some of the civs are just not worth even talking about. You know, they're farming civ in the bin. As simple as that. The other ones you want to consider are these ones up towards the top. If you've not done it already, give us a little like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. See you on the next one.